And so this morning's dynamic class, we're going to start sitting on the floor. I'm going to use a block. And for me, a comfortable position is just to bring the heels into the groin and let the knees down. But if they don't go all the way down, you can always use the bricks and just allow yourself to get a little support. So it's a little bit easier on these hip flexor muscles. They don't feel like they're being pulled quite so strongly. We'll let ourselves sit up nice and tall. And just starting to find that neutral position for the pelvis, so tilting it backwards and forwards a few times. Forgive me, take a sip of water. And relaxing the shoulders down. Lengthening out the back of the neck. And then just taking a couple of moments to breathe and settle that breath down. Breathing from the belly and letting it rise, so diaphragm expands. Exhale, chest comes down, diaphragm and the belly draw in a little bit. See if you can keep the spine nice and long at that point. And we'll move slightly. We're just going to take some wrist work here. So I'm going to interlace the hands, bring the forearms together, and then just roll the wrists over the top of each other. So just warming them up gently, taking them in both directions. And then we'll just shake out those wrists a little bit and shake out those arms. And the hands come down to the floor. And we'll take the arms up towards the sky. We're just going to bring the hands above the shoulders to start with. Palms facing in and exhaling down. So that little bit of difference between hands directly above the head and directly above the shoulders might not seem a lot, but it certainly makes a big difference in terms of the amount of tension that you're putting through the shoulders to start with. So we'll just take the 3 inhales to the sky, hands above shoulders, lengthening up towards the fingertips to the sky. And then we'll see if we can take 3, bringing the hands together to touch. Nice straight arms. And exhaling down. And inhaling up, trying to keep the legs relaxed as we do so. And a final lift. And from here, we're just going to turn to our left, take it into a twist to bring the hands down, looking over the rear shoulder. And we'll see if we can take the hands back up towards the sky. Rotate the chest around, turn into the opposite direction, bring the hands down into that second twist. And just getting some idea of how the neck feels. Any tight spots. It's not going to change a lot just from this simple twist, but it's more an observation to understand how to move carefully through the rest of the class. Something that changes on a daily basis. We'll release and let ourselves come back to the front of the mat. So we're going to take a seated cat-cow. So you're going to tilt the pelvis forwards, let the chest come forwards, and then draw the shoulder blades back, squeeze the shoulder blades together a little bit, and then tilt the pelvis the opposite way, And let the spine round gently. Give a big stretch in the middle of the back. Let the head drop down nice and slowly. And then bring the pelvis back and float. And gently, little squeeze at the top. Roll back. One more time. And we'll come back up to sitting, just untangling the legs, give them a little stretch out. And then we'll move on to all fours. So just moving the blocks out of the way. If you've got bricks, having them up near the front of the mat. And then we'll take a little stretch out with the legs to the back of the mat, one leg at a time. Poor man's plank, I guess you could call that. And then we're going to keep the knees about hip distance apart, sit onto the heels, and let ourselves come into child's pose. So I'm going to bring the hands underneath the forehead for this first child's pose, just because the muscles in the buttocks and the back are a little bit tight. So the head doesn't easily touch the floor. If yours does, that's fine. You can take the hands elsewhere. And deliberately trying to breathe into the belly to optimize that stretch into the lower spine. And on the next exhale, we'll bring ourselves back up. And we're going to take a little Superman. So we're going to take the right foot to the back of the mat. Carefully don't let the shoulders sink in here. You want to press away from the floor and keep the shoulders, the back of the shoulders nice and wide. Press the shin into the ground and let that long leg lift away from the floor. Now we're going to take the opposite hand away. So taking the left hand out in front, try to keep the hips square and stable to the ground, belly drawn in a little bit. Palm faces in on the hand that's outstretched, and we lengthen down the mat rather than out to the sides. And the rear foot is flexed, so pressing out through the heel. Last breath in, bring the hands back down to the floor. And we'll just take it over to the second side. So take a little time to make sure the hands are nicely in line, the fingers are spread, and maximize that foundation contact patch. Take a little breath, press into the shin, draw the belly in, lift the foot slowly up to that height of the hip. Remember, the foot is flexed, toes are down, and spread. When you're ready, you take in your right hand away and lengthening that out in front. And we'll bring that back down. This time we'll take the knees wide for child's pose. So sitting back onto the heels, we take the hands out a little wider than the mat as you stretch forwards and let ourselves sink into the gap between the thighs. And we'll lift a little so we can take the hands over to the right. Just stretch that left hand out a little further. Nice big deep breaths into the side ribs. And then we'll lift, take it to the final side. And walk that right hand out that last little bit. And we'll come back into the center. And let ourselves lift up gently onto all fours. And we're going to take a side plank, but it's a baby one. So we're going to start with the knees underneath the hips, hands underneath the shoulders. And we'll just slowly take the left foot off of the side of the mat, keeping the knee. So we're pivoting on the knee and taking the right foot back and drop the foot in. We'll start to bring ourselves into the side plank. So we're going to press that rear foot down into the floor, a little bit into the shin as the foot is out to the side. We're going to make sure that the hips are pushing forwards a little bit to that right side, the first side that we're facing. We're going to take a little breath from there and we're going to lift up onto our fingertips. Find our balance point and try and come up as high as you can so there's a very little weight on those fingertips. Still trying to press the long foot down into the ground. And then we'll ease down onto the forearm, onto the palm of the hand, and then allow ourselves to just drop back onto all fours. We'll take the right foot out to the side a little bit, again pivoting on that knee gently, sliding the left foot back, sole of the foot down, a little lift, press the hips forwards, open the chest, rear foot binds down to the floor. Take a couple of breaths just to make sure you got your balance. And then on the exhale, going to lift up onto the fingertips. And take as much weight out of that bottom hand as you can. So you're getting used to lifting the body up using the side muscles. And then we'll release back down to the floor. We'll take a tabletop into down dog. So we'll lift the knees away from the floor. We're going to press into the hands and press ourselves towards the back of the mat, keeping low, and then lift the hips up towards the sky. You can adjust, step out your down dog as you need to. And if you feel like walking the dog out a little bit, you can. Maybe you want to be steady in your down dog. It's a personal thing. See how the spine and the legs feel, and the feet. Then we're going to walk the hands gently towards the feet at the back of the mat. So coming into a forward fold. And bring the fingertips onto the shins to lift up halfway. Ardha Uttanasana, and then folding back into the full Uttanasana. Hands come onto the hips, soften the knees flat back to lift on the exhale. Take the hands high into the heart. Exhale forwards, keeping the weight even through the toes and the heels. Bring the hands onto the shins to lift up but extend. Folding down. Hands over the hips, long spine again, soft knees, lift. Take that one more time. Inhale high. Hands through the heart. Lengthen out, slowly coming down. Working with the breath. Hands onto the shins. And then down to the floor. We're going to walk into that down dog. Taking the hands right up to the front of the mat. And then we're going to walk the feet up onto the tippy toes and walk with straight legs. Many steps, feet about hip distance apart into the front of the mat. And then taking that final little lift on the fingertips to get to the front. We'll bring the hands onto the hips and lift up. Again, long spine. Inhale high, hands through the heart. Exhale down to the floor. We're going to step it back, left and right, into down dog. We'll float into plank on the breath in. Lower the knees to the floor, and then bend the elbows back, chest between the hands, and then slide the feet back to bring the belly to the floor. Inhale, low cobra. So lengthen the legs away. Heels roll out, toes in. Inhaling up. And down. 3 more. One for luck. Bring the hands right to the bottom of the ribs and draw those shoulders back. Press into the floor. Lift ourselves onto all fours. We'll just sit back onto the heels. So it's like an extended child's pose. Lift the knees away from the floor. Come right up onto the tippy toes in our down dog. Walk the feet in gently towards the front of the mat. And bring the hands onto the hips to lift up. We'll inhale high. Hands into the heart. Going to exhale down to the floor. Bring those 2 bricks in underneath the hands. Take a lunge with the right foot to the back of the mat. Take a breath. Allow myself to bring the blocks up onto the highest level. And then I'm going to straighten the front leg. Press down into the big toe joint on the front foot. Try and press the rear heel into the ground as well, although it's going to stay lifted off the floor. Now it's going to come right up onto the fists. So hands are directly underneath my shoulders, and I'm trying to keep the hips nice and square to the front of the mat, which means that you kind of almost crossing the thighs back over each other in terms of trying to draw them into that center line. Imagine that you could squeeze your legs together in this pose down the center line of the mat. Take a breath here. We'll bend back into that front knee. Just bring our blocks out of the way. We'll step back into plank. High plank position, so the hips are high. Push forwards into our half plank, just lowering down. Bootlaces changing, up dog takes place on breath in. On the exhale, we'll move back into our down dog. We'll draw the left knee into the chest, bring the foot through into the lunge. Take a little breath, step ourselves forwards, hands onto the hips. Going to lift up, take the opposite side. So inhale through, down to the floor. Bring the blocks back. Take my left foot back this time into the lunge. Then lifting the bricks high. Start to extend into that front leg. So trying to get the spine to be nice and long, the belly's drawn in, 2 straight legs. So there's quite a lot of work into that back leg to keep that straight. press into the big toe joint on the front foot, so the sole of the foot presses down into the ground. Get a sense of squeezing the thighs into the center line, as well as down. Just a few more breaths. And then we'll soften the front knee on an exhale. Let the bricks move out of the way. Step ourselves back into that high plank position. Take a breath, move forwards into the half plank. Followed by up dog. Nice broad shoulders. Lift the hips up, gently back into the down dog. And then we'll draw that right knee into the chest and bring the foot through. From the lunge, we'll step forwards on the exhale. Hands onto the hips and lift up. We'll take the hands high, inhale up. Hands through the heart, exhale down to the floor. I'm going to step it back into down dog. Take a little breath. We'll draw the right knee in towards the chest and take the right foot to the outside of the right hand. So we're going to come into tiger's pose. So we're going to press the knee and the arm together. Make sure the groin is over the center line of the mat. Press out through the back heel. I'm going to stay on the palm of the hands here. Try and draw the chest forwards a little bit. So we're letting the hips sink down to the floor even though we're lengthening out through the body. If you're hypermobile, you want to avoid letting yourself sink down too far. We'll take a little breath from here. We'll step it back into a plank, half plank, up dog, to down dog. And we'll take a scissor dog here, right leg lifts. Toes point to the sky, it's a straight leg, hip opening out to the side. And then bring the knee in towards the chest. And the final exhale, let the foot come forwards through to the lunge. Take a final little press into the back leg. Push off the toes, forward fold. And then we'll lift ourselves back up. We'll do that all to the second side. Inhale up. Hands through the heart, exhaling down. Lifting the thighs, drawing the belly in. Stepping it back into our down dog. And then drawing the left knee into the chest. Taking the left foot to the outside of the left hand. Swing the hips back in if you need to. Drop the hips down a little bit, get that nice line through the body, try and draw the chest forward, so get a little bit of that roundness out of the upper back out. My drawing the chest forwards, squeeze the thigh into the arm. And being conscious on that back leg, although we're not looking at it, that the heel is pointing up towards the sky. And pressing out through the heel to help open the leg out. Certainly noticing that my hip flexors are a little bit sticky after my isolation. Couple more breaths. And then we'll step it back into the plank. Come forwards. Half plank to up dog, into the down dog, a few breaths here. So a chance to settle, check the hands, nicely grounded, no gaps. Feet are hip distance apart, heels hiding behind the ankles. And then we'll take out scissor leg to the left. So tippy toes, point that left foot up towards the sky. Try not to let the bottom right arm drop down too much. Keep pressing into the hands and the shoulders to keep the weight even. And then draw the knee gently in towards the chest, and a final exhale through to the lunge. And then stepping forwards into that forward fold. So hands onto the hips, we'll lift up. Inhale high. Hands in towards the heart. We're going to zigzag the toes together so they touch. Little gap for the heels. Soften the knees, sit back into chair. Slowly extend the hands out above the shoulders. Keep the spine nice and long so the tailbone is tucked under a little bit here. Now we'll bring the hands in towards the heart. Open the legs out, lengthen forwards and down into the forward fold. A bit tighter because the feet are now together. We'll step it back into our down dog. Come forwards into our plank. Move into our half plank. Take the up dog. Lift up the hips. Into down dog. Right leg lifts with scissor dog. Draw the knee in towards the chest slowly and through to the front of the mat. Taking a breath. Stepping forwards. Hands onto the hips, we lift. Inhale high. Hands into the heart. Zigzag those toes back together. And then soften the knees, squeeze the thighs together. Allow ourselves to sit back. Find a happy point to take the fuller version of the chair. So we'll just take the hands out, palms facing in. Nice open shoulders. You can squeeze the shoulder blades together a little bit. Bring the hands into the heart. Extend out forwards and down. Step it back into our down dog. Float into plank. It's a half plank. It's an up dog. And nice exhale back into down dog. And I'll take the left leg high. Final scissor. Knee in towards the chest and foot through to the front of the mat as we exhale. Final lunge, pressing out through the heel into the forward fold. Hands onto the hips. Slow lift. Inhale high for the final time. We'll take that into a little bit of a back bend as well. And then finally bring ourselves back gently into mountain pose. Roll the shoulders around a couple of times before we settle. Let the toes spread out. Close the eyes. As we open the eyes, we'll bring the hands in towards the heart. I'm going to take a step out to the right. Nice big star position. My big radiator behind me has finally warmed the room up and I'm excessively hot. So taking the hands out into that nice star shape. And we're going to take a warrior two to the front of the mat. So it's going to turn both feet in, soften into the front knee. Take a little breath here. We'll turn the palm on the front hand up. Take our reverse warrior. We're going to take the hand at the back round and towards that front thigh. Extend the top arm up and over towards the back of the mat. Let ourselves look down towards the back foot. Be conscious of the front knee still being over the ankle and centered. So opening the groins out a little bit. And we'll come back into warrior two. You can drop into the front hip, keeping the front knee fixed, lengthening into a side angle. So bring the forearm and just press the forearm lightly into the thigh. We'll take the top arm up and then out towards the front, palm down towards the floor. And just rotate into some nice big juicy windmills. We'll take two more of those. And we'll bring both hands down onto the inside of the front thigh. Walk the fingers along to the long side of the mat, turning the heels out, toes in. We'll stay on the fingertips for a moment, and a long flat back, keeping the head in line. And squeeze the thighs together a little bit. Press the feet into the floor a little bit more effectively, feeling a lift and rebound through the thighs. And then we're going to walk the fingers around to the front of the mat, back into the lunge. You can take a scissor dog, so that left leg lifts high. And then bring the foot back down to the floor. We'll draw the right knee in towards the chest in down dog and bring the foot through to the front of the mat. Lift up onto the fingertips. Bring the hands alongside the body. Lift the chest off the thigh. Turn the palms down towards the floor. Squeeze the shoulder blades together as you reach your fingers towards the back of the mat. I'm going to float the arms forwards on the inhale, in line with the body. Then lift the whole body high, keeping the front knee over the ankle into a high crescent. Take a little breath. We're going to drop the back knee down towards the ground. Try not to bounce. And then slow lift up. We'll ease our way down to the floor again. Take a little lift. And a final time coming down. Little lift. We'll lengthen forwards again into the lunge. Push off the toes of the back foot. And bring ourselves into the forward fold. So lift the hips high, fingertips on the floor, head down. I'm trying to get the ribs and the thighs close together, so bend the knees if you need to. And then we'll bring the hands back onto the hips, soften the knees and flat back to lift. Hands above the head. We'll bring the hands into the heart. We take the step out to the left. Open up into our star. Turn the feet forwards for warrior two. And we'll take the reverse warrior. Palm changes on the front hand. Rear hand slides around to the front thigh. Look down that back shoulder. to the back foot. Keep the leg fully engaged. Remember to open the groins on the front leg a little bit. And ease our way back into warrior two. We'll drop into that front hip, extending out. Forearm on the side, just a little bit of pressure. Top arm lifts up slowly, turn the palm to the front of the mat, and then just taking the windmill. We're trying to keep the chest pointing to the side of the mat. So it's the shoulder that's rolling around, not the body. Body is pretty much steady underneath, hopefully. Well, apart from the muscular trembles of staying in position. And we'll take one more. And bring the hands onto the inside of that front thigh. Walk the fingers around to the long side, turn the toes in. And then when you're ready, we're going to take a breath, lengthen chest forwards, trying to get the front hip bones as far away from the thighs as you can as you extend out. And then let them fold over the thighs and let the body follow. Still pressing into the floor with the feet. Trying to keep two straight legs. As straight as you can. Okay, tremble and wobble a little bit underneath this, that's okay. And then we'll use the hands to press ourselves back up. Walk around to the front of the mat again. Take ourselves into scissor dog, so taking that right leg high. Bringing the foot back down, we're into down dog again. We take a little breath, draw the left knee into the chest to bring the foot through. And bring the hands alongside the body, lifting the chest. Squeeze of the shoulder blades, press out through the fingertips. Allow ourselves to take the hands forwards. A slow lift. One breath at the top. Ease the back knee down to the floor. Little lift. Coming down. And a final lift. And drop. Lifting back up, we lengthen forwards again into the lunge. Take a breath. Step slowly forwards. And then fold as deeply as we can into that forward bend. Bring the hands onto the shins to lift up halfway. Fold it back down. I'll lift up halfway. Fold it down. And the last time lifting up. And folding down. Now I'm going to allow myself to bring the hands onto the hips, soften the knees and flat back to lift up. And I'm just going to take my flat block towards the back of the mat. Not using it straight away, but it's going to be there in place for when I need it. And I'm not going to stand right next to the front of the mat because I'm going to take warrior three. And if I do, I want my head on the wall. The joys of being tall. So I'm going to take feet about hip distance apart. Allow ourselves to take the hands up towards the sky as we breathe in towards the heart. Now we're going to take the pose from chair. So we're going to soften the knees, sit ourselves gently back. Now at this point you want to start focusing on drawing the belly in and keeping the spine nice and long. And noticing whether your legs have a tendency to roll out to the sides or collapse in. They want to track where your feet are coming because that's the foundation we're going to launch from. Bring the hands in towards the heart. We'll take the weight into the right leg. Slowly draw the left knee a little higher. Start to flex the foot, spread the toes. And we'll ease that foot towards the back of the mat. Trying to keep the hips nice and square. Now you can straighten out the front leg a little more, but keep a bend in it. And then we're going to soften the front knee and let the hands gently come to the floor in control. So it's like we move gently back in slow motion into a lunge. And then just press off the toes of the back foot into the forward fold. Lengthen forwards on the fingertips. So that's half forward fold. And then let yourself sink down all the way to the ground. Bring the hands onto the hips as we inhale, soften the knees and let ourselves lift. We'll do that second side. Inhale high. Hands into the heart. We'll soften the knees. Into our chair pose. Just check where our knees are pointing, feet are pointing. Think about drawing the belly in, that long spine. Shift the weight into the left leg. Right knee comes up a little higher. We flex the foot and spread the toes. And then slowly we hinge forwards and lengthen that right foot back. Try and keep the hips square to the ground. When you've got long, you can lengthen that front leg a little bit more. So you're regulating how far you lean forwards, how high you keep the back foot. Trying to breathe. And then we're going to soften the front knee. Bring the fingertips down into the lunge position. Push off the toes. Step into the forward fold. Come up onto the fingertips and lengthen forwards again. So that nice long flat back. Fold down. Take a little breath. We'll step back into down dog. And I'm going to see if I can place my heels onto the block. So you might need to shuffle around a little bit. And then I'm going to start to take the toes out 45 degrees. Walk the hands in and sit back into Malasana, the squat pose. And bring the forearms or the elbows onto the inside of the thighs. Bring the heel and hands together into prayer. So opening the thighs out a little more. And letting myself breathe. And then we can release from there. So I'm just going to sit down nice and easily. Take the feet forwards. Take a little breath here. Allow ourselves to lie down onto the ground. So knees come high, hands behind for a little bit of support. I'm going to still use the block under the back of the head, but it is an option. You don't have to have it there. I'm going to take a little spinal twist. So I'm going to take the arms out nice and wide. Bring the feet close into the bottom and on the center line. Let the legs roll over to the right to start with, head to the left. And I'm going to inhale the knees back up and exhale across to the opposite side. Inhaling high. And then letting the legs move back over to the right side. So I'm just going to work with my breath. Yours might be faster or slower than mine. And we'll take it over to the left for the final time. And bring ourselves back into the center. Now I'm going to bring the hands alongside my body, palms face down, and almost have my hands underneath my bottom. They're not quite, but they're going to be that close in that my thumb is kind of underneath my buttocks. So if we press the back of the triceps, forearms, and the back of the arms into the ground, drawing the knees in towards the chest, take a little breath, and then extend the legs up towards the sky, pointing the toes. I'm going to try and keep one leg high and then let the other leg drop down as we exhale. So take a breath in, and we'll take the right leg to the floor, pointing out through the toes. We try and miss the ground, get within sort of half an inch, and then lift ourselves back up. Now, we won't know whether it's half an inch or not, unless we happen to be looking at a film of ourselves later on. But generally, you kind of have an awareness of where it is if you concentrate. The hard part is keeping both legs straight and the top leg pointing up towards the sky. We're trying to keep the lower back connected to the ground. And we'll take it a final time to the left side, dropping down. I'm going to bring the knees in towards the body so the feet stay off of the ground. And take the arms wide again. I'm going to take a second spiral twist, but I'm going to lengthen the legs over towards the right side, keeping the shoulders on the ground. And then if that feels okay, you can extend the legs out and open them out. So just slowly extend the legs out to the side into straight legs. Now, if you tried that and your shoulders have lifted off the ground, I would suggest bringing the heels back in towards your bottom until the shoulders can rest again onto the floor. Just a couple more breaths. To come out of this, on the exhale, we'll bend the knees, so heels in towards buttocks, and then lift the knees up. Take a little breath, and let ourselves roll over to the opposite side. So just coming in gently. See how that feels. It feels good. You can extend the legs out again. Again, if you get halfway through the process and then realize you've overcooked it a little bit, you can come into bringing the feet back in. Actually, just a little bit too close to the radiator, and now my feet are underneath that, getting a little bit warm. And try and keep the feet flexed and the heels lengthened out when you're in this fuller position. 2 more breaths. And then again, we'll bring the heels in towards the buttocks and let the knees lift. Now keep the knees drawn in towards the body. We're going to bring the hands back down again to that starting position. So it's rolling the hands a little underneath the buttocks. Taking a breath, extending the legs up towards the sky. We're going to squeeze the thighs together And this time both legs come halfway down, which is just about when your toes look like they're running out of your peripheral vision. Inhale back up again. And keeping that nice and slow, exhaling out. Inhaling up. And exhaling out. Inhale up. I'm going to squeeze the thighs gently. Exhaling it back. Inhaling up. And exhaling out. Remember, it's only halfway. As you get tired, it's easy to let the legs drop too far, and then you start getting into problems with arch in the back. So as you get tired, try and let the legs less close to the ground, keeping them higher. We'll take one more extension forwards with the legs. Bring them back up. Knees in towards the chest. And we'll take the arms out wide again. Now this time we are going to let the feet come onto the floor, close into the bottom. We'll take the left leg high, cross it over, and then ease that over to the right side. Now if you're able to hook your foot around the back of your calf, then great. You do want to try and keep shoulders on the ground. And we'll come back to the center on an exhale. Untangle the legs. Bring feet back down to the floor, close into the bottom, and we take the right leg this time high and over. Take the twist out to the left. And come back to the center. Take both legs to the sky and stretch out. And knees in towards the chest. We're going to take a little hug. So wrap the arms around the shins. And I'm going to roll onto my right side. Use the hands to press into the floor. Coming up to sitting. Going to just draw the flesh out. Feet are in front together and feet are flexed. Then I'm going to put a little bend into the knees. Lift those hips up out of the floor and over the thighs into a seated forward fold. Now I'm going to take the hands on top of the toes today and actually draw the feet back. So not only am I drawing the feet back, but I'm trying to take the shoulders in that direction towards the back of the mat as well. As I do that, I'm going to try and lift the chest up and forwards, drawing the belly in and lengthen out through the heels. And then we can release. Take the hands behind, little lift in the knees. I'm going to slide into Shavasana. So if you do have an extra top that you want to put on, time to grab. And controlling your descent back down to the floor. Choice of cushions or blocks underneath the back of the head. Hands out to the side, Again, your choice to have the feet wide, knees high and centered if you know that you suffer with issues in the lower back area or sore muscles. It's a good way to relax them. Or if you feel happy to, you can take the feet out to the corner edges of the mat and let the toes just roll out gently. A little letting of the eyes close, licking the lips a few times so we soften the jaw. Take a little wriggle through the shoulders, let them release down to the ground, and lengthen the right foot away, the left foot away, and just a few times just stretching out the back of the lower back muscles, and then relax. Start stretching the toes again, the fingers. A little wriggle through the wrists and the ankles. Deeper breath into a stretch. And then letting yourself release wherever that feels good to do. And we'll take a gentle slide over to the right side, using the hands to press into the floor to lift on the exhale. Drawing ourselves to sit up nice and tall, a little wriggle through to get settled. Hands into the heart as we take a breath in. Just a moment to be grateful for the start of a new year. And then on the exhale, allow yourself to bow gently to the floor. Sealing the practice for the morning. Inhaling, letting the body lift up as you open the eyes. Namaste. Have a lovely day.